Musa, who was the first one that had peeped me to in his writing, African Woman Guardian Angel, to the mitochondrial DNA. So this Torah portion, at least the first part of this double portion, this is a couple of my notes right here. I hope the brothers and sisters and those who I get to check this out will either join us in the first part of the RasTafari sabbatical, the double portion for 27 and 28, respectively known as Tazria and Metzora in the Hebrew, or Betareges and Bementzatu. And Tazria means she conceives, right? She conceives. And Metzora is speaking of one diseased. All right, these are the two Torah portions that for this 2015 sabbatical Shemitah year. Now, I've been speaking a lot on that, and I want to go into some of the details of how this also connects with the matrix. Are you interested with the matrix? So this Torah portion actually, for Leviticus chapter 12, speaking of a holy God, a holy Amlak, a holy Elohim, and a holy people. And the law of motherhood, or I like to call the law of the matrix. It's interesting because the Schofield Study Bible have Psalm 51 and 5. Psalm 51 and 5. And there was a psalm that actually comes into our meditation when we're going to touch on the matrix, but I'll leave that on the air. So please, brothers and sisters, if you can, I'm doing this as a short vid. Join us on the air either for the first part, 10 p.m. Tonight, the 25th of April 25th. So the link verse here is 51 and 5. It says, "Behold, I was shapen in iniquity." This is David speaking, right? This is David, a psalm of David. And this right here is a perfect repentance psalm. But let's read the verse. "Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me." Now, in the Schofield, right, in the Schofield Study Bible, now it's interesting because here in the Hebrew it says the Hebrew "conceive me" means warm me. In the marginal notes, it says warm me, right? Like to warm someone up. But then it also has John, the Gospel of John 3 and 6. So we're just going to go there to remind ourselves and those who hear. 3 and 6 says, "That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the spirit is spirit." So that which is born of the carnal mind is carnal mentality. And that which is born of the spirit, or the spiritual, the iritical mind, is spiritual. And this is in the chapter where Yeshua and Nicodemus discuss the new birth, right? The new birth, or being born again. So the law of motherhood, the law of the matrix. I like to touch a little bit more on the law of the matrix. Let's see if we can bring this up right here. The law of the matrix. Here we go. Here we go. The matrix, right? The matrix right here. The law of the matrix. But let's first of all discuss the law of the matrix. Then we're going to discuss the broken law of the matrix. That's where the quote from Psalm 51 and 5, right, as a groundation for this Torah portion, this first part of the Torah portion, Tazria Betareges, or she conceives. And here's the first key words in this Torah portion, Leviticus chapter 12. "And the Lord and Yahweh Exhiavi Herstena Yahweh spake to Muse, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a woman, we say womb man, have conceived seed. If a womb man, you'll say woe man, we say womb man. John knows as womb man, but because of fallen man, it's become woe man. But in John's eyesight, she is womb man. If a womb man have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be, it says, unclean 7 days. According to the days of the separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. Now remember, this is King James translation. We could get into these words right here, because these words right here, we need to get into these words right here. That's why when we read First Corinthians 14 and 26, it says, may all things be done to the edifying. That's why it says, howbeit when we come together, as we're about to come together in the next couple of maybe half hour or so on the ear and in the spirit, it says, howbeit that each one hath a psalm, a mezmor, hath a doctrine, a timharit, hath a or Talmud, right? Hath a tongue, a language. Like, what does this English language really mean? Hath a revelation, like I Wendem, Miskana Toda Rabba, Wendem Yasan, for sharing that revelation in the text message, right? A little bit earlier. And it says an interpretation. So we have Psalms. We're going to address Psalms, have Psalms, songs, the music, the Isis, thanks and praise, the reggae, the King's music as we know it. We're going to have the doctrine of the King of Kings, or the teaching of His Majesty, the tongue, right? Speaking of the Hebrew, but first of all, addressing this English, right? The Hebrew, the Greek, and of course the pure language, the Royal Amharic, hath a revelation. Many of the brothers and sisters already, actually some of the sisters told me that, it's interesting, like every time going over this, there's always something new that they learn. It's a revelation, right? As well as an interpretation, right? But see, the groundation, the psalm, thanks and praise, the doctrine, teaching of His Majesty, the tongue, the language, right? The revelation and the interpretation. What does this mean, right? What does this mean? All right, so it says right here that in the 8th day, if she has a man child, a male child, this is the law of the matrix. First, we want to discuss the law of the matrix, then see how this law has been broken, and therefore how we have what the word says in Psalm 58 and 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Right? Speaking against this truth of the King of Kings, against Jah's word. That's why ones will tell you, whoa, that was the Bible. It doesn't really have to be followed. But it's interesting. Let me just go on right here. So in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. We have to discuss circumcision. There's a lot of things called circumcision that are not circumcision. So we need to also discuss that, brothers and sisters. That says in verse 4, and she shall continue in the blood. Remember, blood is a symbol for life, of her purifying 33 days. 33 days. Oh, this is Jah's word. This is the matrix. This is the law of the matrix. 33. Right? She shall touch no hollow thing or holy thing pertaining to the sanctuary, the courts of, according to the Old Testament, right? Nor come into the sanctuary, the Mekdes, until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. Now, purity and purification is a good thing, ain't it? But see, the world, flesh, and devil tells you this is chauvinistic. This is misogynistic. You can do what you want because you are free in feminism, right? That's the broken law. But it says right here, but if she bear a maid child or a female child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks. That's 2 sevens. As in her separation. And she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, to the priests. Verse 7, who shall offer it before Exhiabihar, the sustainer, Yahweh, he who he be his divine majesty, and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that have borne a male or a female child. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest, the Kohen or the Kohen, right, shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. Now, there's a very important principle here that people say, well, this is Old Testament, but the spiritual principle remains, and the hygienics also, as well as the health. When this is violated, for example, for the male child is 40 days, right? For the female child is 80 days. And this is also something I want to share. Probably wait till we get on the air and in the spirit. So please stay tuned for that RasTafari discipleship, the RasTafari sabbatical on the Blog Talk Radio. Brothers and sisters, we have a number for that? The number for that? Yeah, I don't have the number on the other phone. I know it's a 646 and everything. I'll bring that out. But like you said, we can go to the RasTafariGroundation.com, also the Facebook Rastafari Groundation, the Facebook group as well. Now, this is interesting because in the next chapter, right, it's going to speak about leprosy, right? Leprosy in the flesh, right? And then when we get to, chapter 14, right? It's a rather long chapter. When we get to chapter 14, is speaking of the law of the leper, which is the second part of this. So we have the first part of this double portion in this Shemitah year, blood moon prophecy sign season of Israel's Jubilee, right? Jubilee is so very important. It's a rest. So we start to see the connection between the womb, right, and the womb man resting, right, as well as the land resting. And then we see also the punishments of Israel when they did not observe the sabbatical year. It's like the same way if we don't observe the Sabbath in spirit and in truth, right? There's no rest. But what does the Bible say? There's no rest for the wicked. So you have to ask yourself, why are you not able to rest? This is why he who is that which is born of the flesh is flesh, right? That which is born of the spirit is spirit. So within a little bit of time that we have here, I'm going to try to get this vid up here and go into some more of the details. I don't want to even open up those particular subject matters here, but I did want to follow up on the earlier vids, right? I want to get into the XX, why 80 days for the XX, the female, why 40 days for the XY. Does that mean the X has a value of 40? I want to make this connection with the mitochondrial DNA, which I was speaking about at the earlier part. Also the link of the womb man, the true woman in the sight of the land, and the rest, respectively, for it depends on what fruit she bears. If it is a male fruit, child to say, or if it's a female fruit or child, right? So we see that link between the land and the earth and the womb. And this time, according to the law of the matrix, is time for rejuvenation, this time for renewing, right? This time for renewing herself, right? Renewing herself and renewing her womb, and for purification. You know, so if that which does not come to that purity, it's lessened in value. So this is to increase her own value, right, in her own spirit, in her own soul, in her own body. So this is the law of the matrix. This is the law of the womb. This is the law of motherhood right here. So once again, brothers and sisters, you can call in tonight, coming up 10 p.m. We have an overdrive, I think at noon or at 1. And the call-in line is 646-595-3898. For the Discipleship Radio is 646-595-3898. And we hope to hear the eye on the ear in the spirit. Shalom, RasTafari. This is Wyndham Yarden. Shalom.